Hey guys, welcome back to Warframe. Just a quick video discussing some more Hydroid changes that they rolled out. Mostly discussing how powerful his Undertow is, but also mentioning how they're probably going to nerf it because it's really powerful, and I'll be showing that in a second. The first change with Hydroid is they updated his PBR, which basically means his textures don't bleed out as much, so it's more crisp. Obviously, this is with this immortal skin. Without it, as you can see, his textures aren't as smudgy, I guess you could call it before. So actually, I prefer him without his immortal skin now, thankfully. And the second change is Tentacle Swarm hasn't changed in any regard except when the tentacles actually hold up enemies, they will move around slower, so you can actually hit them easier with your guns. And the third change is with his Undertow. Now, allies can actually deal damage to your Undertow, and 50% of the damage is dealt to all enemies in the pool. And now the pool also scales in damage based on how many enemies are in the pool. So if I put a bunch of enemies here, you can see it scaling pretty decently. This is with 30% strength. I'll show the build in a second. You can see it's doing it pretty good, and it's also impact damage, but when you actually proc corrosive on them, watch the damage. 5,000, 15,000, 26,000, 42,000, 86,000, and then it went up to 100,000. This is unintentional, clearly. This is not supposed to happen. I'm not sure what's going on. I had maybe two options. One of them is, for some reason, the scaling of the enemies is based on how much damage you do to the pool itself. So because the Tempest Barrage was dealing damage to the pool, it progressively increased damage. Not necessarily because it's removing armor, but the removal of armor made it deal even more damage as a result. The second instance is there's always been issues with enemies and when they're ragdolled or knocked down, and because when enemies are in Undertow, they're in a permanent knockdown or ragdolled state, they might be receiving bonus damage as they're being tossed around, similar to the old bug that they fixed where you could knock down an enemy or ragdoll them, and then with Ash, and then use his Shuriken ability, his first ability, and one-shot any enemy, because it would hit them several times in a row, dozens of times in fact, and then proc like hundreds of slash procs that would just melt them away. So they're probably going to change this, and what they're probably going to do is they're probably just going to fix how the damage works in Undertow to more reasonable levels, because that is overpowered no matter how you look at it. Level 145 enemies killed in a matter of seconds, and I'll just show you how quick. I'll cast this twice. Level 145, and they're full health. Boom, dead. That quick. That shouldn't be a thing. That's just too powerful. But what they're probably going to do, like I was saying, is they're going to nerf this to reasonable levels, but they're going to still ignore Tentacle Swarm. Now, they still have not done any changes to this. It still spawns an inflatable prop Kraken that does nothing. Pops up, and then it goes down in the ground. And it still does the low 200 damage per tentacle. Obviously, with 30% damage, it's doing 261, which is, even before they just recently buffed Undertow, his Undertow before still did more than his Tentacle Swarm. So either they have to, like, quadruple the damage of this Tentacle Swarm, or at least make it move around or something, because it's just disappointing as hell. It's still one of his most disappointing things, and I've heard a lot of people say that his Tentacle Swarm is pretty silly because of that thing that does nothing, but instead of fixing that, debuffs Undertow to, like ridiculous levels. So yeah, I said I was going to show the build, so here it is. Undertow now does impact damage, so this actually helps remove the armor, so it does more damage, which actually doesn't make sense because finisher damage actually made more sense because enemies were drowning. I made a joke on my Discord that's basically because it deals impact now, Hydroid's actually punching the enemies, because I mean, how else would it deal impact? An enemy's drowning, yet it deals impact damage, which... yeah, so the joke is basically that he's punching them underwater, which is funny, but it still doesn't make any sense. So it's a good build. It kills really quick, but don't expect this to stay very long.